White civilization and its people have become unserious. And this is particularly threatening as we live in a time now where we are a significant minority in the global population. As it stands currently, white people only encompass around 7 to 8% of the global population. Long ago, we were always bigging up minorities, and now we are the minority, proved and simple. The populations around the world are only ever growing, whilst ours is dwindling. Our population is set to decline even further, and many white countries are going to, in 50, 60 years' time, no longer even be white majority countries. And partly what's causing that is this unseriousness that we're talking. An unseriousness in our reaction to attacks against us. An unseriousness in our ability to collectivize, our lack of asabaya, you could call it. The peoples around the world do not have these problems. The peoples around the world collectivize as one unit. They move together and they react together. An attack on one of them is an attack against all of them. And we don't have that. And that is fundamentally what is eroding our civilization. Now, the first point we want to get started with is this kind of self-deprecation, memification of our culture. It's very well known and ever present in our kind of attacks against our institutions, like the church or nationalism. It's been memed to death, partly by other people. And it lays itself very clear in these two episodes that have occurred recently. First one being the Charlie Kirk assassination. Now, the memes are kind of funny. We probably laughed together at a couple of them. And that's on us. That's poor from us. Charlie Kirk being assassinated is us laughing at someone that essentially had the same civilization-saving message as us. He just became a meme. He should have been a martyr, and in any sensible, organized group, he would have been one. Instead, he's just been left to rot away as a dumb meme. Now, the same goes for the Epstein case, and far more perniciously as well. Epstein referred to us as goyim cattle. Our sons and daughters to him were merely sex objects. And when this all came out, how did the world react to it? How did us as a white civilization react to someone of another race deliberately molesting, doing all sorts of heinous, horrible things to our kids? We made it a meme. It was there was no outrage. There was no appall. It was, let's, AI Jeffrey Epstein into a Fast and Furious video. Now, they can be funny in isolation videos, but they speak to a broader ill within us. We're victimized. We're referred to as cattle, as scum. And when we hear about it, our first thought is instead to laugh at it. It's not to go against it. It's not to be angry. It's instead to joke and laugh. And it's this kind of benignness to our destruction that is going to lead to the collapse of us as a people. Now, I don't know what you think on this, Muslim bro.
There's a very common saying here in the UK, it's like the way we deal with difficult times is by joking about it or by trying to turn it into a funny situation. But I think fundamentally what that does is it might help you feel a bit better, but with social media and even if, doing something publicly in general, it puts out a certain image of you. And so if somebody like Charlie Kirk gets martyred and then he gets made fun of, what does that mean about his message? What does that mean about what he's left behind? It means it was never worth taking serious in the first place. Because a man who dies, or anybody who dies, deserves a certain respect. So it's not like it's a taboo, right? You don't make fun of somebody who's dead. You don't mention their name in vain. You don't speak about them because they're dead. You just let them rest in peace, let them live on in the next life. But what this also does, and it's going to lead us to our next point, Christian bro, as well, is that it puts forward this weakness to other cultures, to other people, to other races. It puts white people in this position of, if they make fun of themselves, we can just make fun of them, right? I remember scrolling on Instagram once, and I've deleted social media, so a lot of these memes I'm happy I don't actually get to see. It was very, very weird because I was going through, for some reason, my algorithm just gave me a bunch of African videos. It was Central or Southern African videos. And one of them had 15 million likes, which is insane. And it was just a black guy making fun of white people the entire time. And when I go in the comments, it's white people not going, hey, you can't do that. That was too far. It was people continuing the jokes. It was people maintaining the jokes.
Race that does that.
Yeah, the only race who does it. Imagine doing that, for example, making fun of a Muslim. They're like, hey, that's my religion. Why are you doing that? Imagine making fun of a black person for the way they dress. It's like, hey, that's my culture. That's what my ancestors have been doing. Oh, you guys eat cats and monkeys. It's like, yeah, we have to feed ourselves. Like they'll find a defense for something. Whereas white people will memify themselves, they'll self-deprecate themselves. I think the points you've made on Jeffrey Epstein are really, really important to keep in mind as well, because in today's culture, just by memifying something, by making something a meme, you take away its pertinence, you take away its actual power. And this should be something that gets spoken about seriously, not something you post on Twitter about, oh, jet goes hard, being when Epstein's jet goes hard as a photo. Anything you want to add on that point, Christian, bro?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple. I mean, we'll touch on the lack of self-respect and its consequences just in a second. And I think just also on the Epstein case, what you were saying about kind of delegitimizing it. I genuinely wouldn't be surprised if the big insurge of memes relating to Jeffrey Epstein was some sort of op in of itself. As in, remember what the core takeaway of it should have been. You know, we're Goyim, we're just tools for him. We're toys, aren't we? That should have been the resounding message. But obviously the resounding message became the memes. And I genuinely wouldn't be surprised if there was some kind of covert op to make it that way. But anyway, let's see what this actual lack of self-respect leads to. Now, as we were saying, we don't treat ourselves with respect, so why should the rest of the world treat us with respect? And it transpires into these horrible instances we see happening to us. Now, also, I do want to quickly emphasize, I'm not blaming you specifically or us specifically. A lot of this does come down to our kind of horrendous elite allowing stuff like this to happen. But let's not ignore the fact that we do need to stand up for ourselves more and assert ourselves as a people a bit more. Anyway, the point being is that you look at all these cases, grooming gangs. You have that horrendous case that I don't really even say out loud on that happened in Italy, and the 2 women that got murdered in Morocco. Now, in all of these instances, what was the response? The response was weak, pathetic. You know, these are heinous acts that happened. Those 2 poor women got beheaded and raped. The grooming gang scale, again, it makes me sick to even talk about what happened. But in each case, the response wasn't immediate deportation or deportation, or immediate execution. It was our kind of caring state that used to work for white people being transported onto people that don't have the same concepts as us. Our measures of punishment are soft. You know, these people are used to harsh response. Because we outlay such generous measures of punishment, these people just think they can get away with it. If you are a kind of dumb third worlder and you see the punishment for raping a native woman as just 5 months in prison or whatever, to their mind, that's almost worth it. We don't treat ourselves, we don't attack those that attack us. So they don't treat us with respect. We're weak, we're generous. We don't have anger in us anymore. Now flip it the other way. Imagine there was a grooming gang of white men in Pakistan. They would have been absolutely, they'd be dead within 2 days
be
of that news
stoked.
coming out. Imagine 2 Arab women got killed in Europe and raped. Do you think there'd be as little attention as these 2 poor girls received? No. And that case there at the bottom, that is a case that only happens because they have that little respect for us. That's them asserting themselves over us because they know the backlash will be weak. Now, you can speak to it more as well because you are, of course, non-white and you probably interact with more people that have these perceptions of us. So it'd be interesting just to hear from you what you kind of gather the perception of a lot of migrants in the UK are towards native people and white people more generally.
Hey, Christian, bro. Not to make this a meme either, but I'm 50-50, okay? No, I'm joking, obviously. I am mostly, in terms of my identity, holding on to the Muslim side more. But very quickly, before I talk about what I heard one time at a talk that was held by quite a prominent, not kind of like anti-Western figure, but it's very important to remember that the punishments that Christian bro is talking about are now seen as third world punishments. Like if you said, this guy's raped a woman and he's killed her, let's execute him, it's seen as us stooping down to their level. We're not stooping down to their level. There is no level below this and they deserve the punishment. And so it's almost like the West has to get out of this feminist framework of thinking, this feminist ideation of what is right and what is wrong based on what is fair and what is unfair, or what is soft and what is tough. Everything taken on by these third worlders will continue, right? Their crusade to do horrible things and disrespect the white civilization, white people, will continue if the punishment is not to a degree and in the simplicity that they understand. A toddler, for example, doesn't understand a 10-minute lecture about why putting their hand on their stove is wrong. But they do understand, you put your hand on your stove, it burns your hand. Don't do it. And maybe you smack their hand. That's how they learn. It's the same way that we have to react with these people. Do you want to add anything to that, Christian, bro, quickly before I talk
Yeah,
about?
I mean, think about it. We're dealing with IQs on that parallel, aren't we? We're dealing with IQs that can't develop beyond that. So then you have to mediate out harsh punishment. Our system, of course, was built on a kind of entirely homogenous society. Thus, the justice system could be more relaxed. It can't be anymore. And it reflects onto them that we don't respect ourselves, so they shouldn't take any advantage they can out of it. But yeah, anyway, just your perceptions from what you've heard from people.
Yeah, absolutely. So one time I was at a talk, and it was basically an anti-Western talk, specifically in regard to Israel. This is right, but it did come up as a conversation that the speaker was basically putting forward that we should have as groups, which was if the West is willing to allow immigrants to come in illegally, to allow them to work and make money, and to send that money back. But not only that, it also allows them to freely do what they want to do. And oftentimes, crimes that they would get killed for, or crimes that, let's say, Sharia law would have them executed for or harshly punished, here they only get a couple months in prison. What this puts into the minds of not me, okay, I'm not saying that the average Muslim has this specifically, but what this puts towards the disgusting people that you see in the top left corner there is this mentality of, I can walk over these people because I've done it before. They're okay with stepping on your necks because you've allowed them to. Because fundamentally, the ideas that allow them to exist are ideas that are soft. The idea of having open immigration and being pro-immigration. This doesn't make them want to. There's no reciprocation here. There's no, oh, you've allowed me and I'm going to take care of you, right? It's, you've allowed me and I'm going to abuse you. And so what I ended up realizing, and again, this was a discussion he wanted us to have, was when you have a society or a culture that allows you to get away with things that you know you'd be punished for back home, what do you end up doing? Do you end up following the rules, or do you end up just doing what you want to do at your base or desires? But the answer is very obvious. We just have to look around us. Some of the worst people in the UK are people who, if they did what they did here back home, like I said, would be at the bare minimum exiled to some random mountain where they would starve to death. They don't get that here. And so they can do what they want to do. And psychologically, right? If you're new here, you know Muslim bro loves to talk about psychology. Psychologically, all this puts into their mind is one thing and one thing only. I can do what I want to do and there'll be no repercussion. That's what stays in their mind. That's a belief they start holding, and they'll start behaving like that is fundamentally true.
Like, I think about it this way as well. As we diminish as a global share of the population, these only become more pronounced. We can't survive if we keep this framework going. It has to be a more serious point. I mean, I don't want to go towards calls to action. Obviously, don't do anything. Please, if you are, I mean, we're a small channel. We don't have much influence, but please don't ever take to violence or anything like that. But the very least you can do is when you do see criticism attacking white people, at least just stand up. You know, be a bit more like the people of India when people attack India. You know, let it not just go without punishment, obviously without going towards any violence. And this problem only becomes more pronounced when you consider the kind of collective solidarity that all the other world's races have. Think of the reaction that the black community had to a crackhead getting killed, right? That was organized. Now, obviously, they're allowed to do that. They are allowed to act as a movement. We aren't, of course, I'll accept that. But there was genuine anger to it. They did move almost as one. Muslims move as one when they see any negative depiction of Muhammad or any attack on Islam itself, right? You wouldn't burn a Quran in a Muslim area because you know there'd be a response, and that in itself builds a respect for Islam. You know, you can get away with doing anything to defile Christianity. Think again, like an attack on Palestinians, there's a global solidarity amongst Arabs towards their brothers. We don't have that same thing. Our people in South Africa, right? They're getting forced out of their land. They're the one getting killed by the blacks of South Africa. There isn't a kind of global white solidarity for South Africa that's pronounced on the internet. We're going to lose if we keep this up because all the other races are playing competitively in a way. We don't play competitively. They do. And as we dwindle our share of the population, and as they grow their share of the population, either we switch into gear and start acting serious, or, well, we'll see our demise.
Just take the example of world Jewry. How many Jews are there in the world? 20 million? 30 million? That's a tiny number. Like, they are a minority. However, an attack against one Jew is an attack against every Jew. And you have to give them kudos. I can't lie, you have to give them kudos. They know how to protect each other. But for some reason, there's a weird shame around a white person protecting a white person. We're not going to talk about that necessarily, of where that shame comes from or why it's been perpetuated. But at the very least, like Christian Bro said, you don't have to go out and beat somebody up for saying something against a white brother of yours. But stand up for you. Stand up for you. Build your own self-respect. And the more self-respect you have for yourself, for your culture, for your religion, for where you come from, the more you'll be able to outwardly portray that. So within, so without. Whatever is within you in terms of self-respect will be manifested, if you will. It will show to you from the outside. A good example you gave, Christian Bro, was with the Muslims. Muslims are taught from a very young age that you have to respect the Quran. You have to respect the Prophet, peace be upon him, right? You have to respect an elderly person or another Muslim. And so when all of a sudden that respect gets broken by somebody else, it's almost like what are they called? Like sleeper agents? It's almost like your sleeper agent in you gets activated and you're like this automated robot who will do anything to protect the sanctity or to protect the respect of that thing. Whereas for some reason, and again, we're not going to talk about all the reasons, me and Christian Bro have many, many theories, but at the very least, start putting yourself next to a brother of yours. Start putting yourself next to fellow white people. Don't see yourself as separate. Yes, you might dislike the white feminist and she does your head in. Okay, I understand. But protect her name. Protect her sanctity. Protect who she is as a person. And the more white people as a civilization can do this, the more respect they'll hold for themselves and each other, and the more respect they will receive. And I think that's a really important point here, because a black person, a crackhead like George Floyd, right? Somebody who, like, he was a criminal. It's very simple. He was a criminal. However, because he's black, and for a bunch of other reasons, but because he's black people came together and stood up for him. The Muslims, right? Most of these guys are Pakistani. They have nothing to do with the tie of land of Palestine. But because they are Muslim brothers, because they are Muslim children, they decide to do something about it. When it was the last time you, dear viewer, thought to yourself, how much do I love my white brothers and sisters for the sake of them being white? That's the last point I wanted to make, Christian, bro, honestly.
Yeah, I can't say anything better than what you've just said, though. You summarized excellently. So, yeah. But yeah, essentially, as what my Muslim bro was saying, take yourself more seriously. Leave a comment. Like the video. If this video doesn't get taken down, there has been quite a lot of edgy stuff said on this one. But yeah, please, we'd love to read all your comments. And yeah, see you on the next video. Thank you very much.
God bless. Take care.